Hey everybody, it's Patrick Escolas with another episode of Banyan Technology's Tire Tracks podcast. Today I got a special episode. I've got two people from two separate organizations. I've got Mark Hamblin from InsightWorks and Bill Gaustad from SPS. Sorry, there's another part to SPS, Bill. Hit me with it.
SPS Commerce.
SPS Commerce, yeah,
Yes,
business, money going back. How do I forget that? I'm a terrible salesperson. No, but thank you for that, Bill. What I always like to do after, of course, I pre-interviewed you guys, so you guys would find me funny and laugh at all my jokes. But Mark, give me a quick breakdown of who you are and why we're talking logistics today. Where'd you get into that? How'd that come? And then Bill, just a quick heads up. I'm going to do the same to you after. So Mark, you go first.
Sure. I'm not exactly sure why you want to talk to me specifically, because most people try and avoid that. But InsightWorks in general, we do a lot in Business Central for shipping. And what I mean by that is, right within the ERP system, being able to package things up, build your pallets, all those sorts of things, get the shipping rates via Banyan, send the ASNs via SPS Commerce. We're sort of that hub within Business Central that allows people to define what they're shipping, how they're shipping it, those sorts of things, and then and get it out the door. And we've got a WMS, and we work in manufacturing and all those sorts of things. So anything Business Central related, the Business Dynamics, Microsoft Dynamics Business Central ERP solution, that's what we do, and that's basically it.
And so from that, and I'll go back into more on the InsightWorks, but have you been a technical background coming into more the logistics place, or tell me a little bit about yourself? Because one thing that and I know that might be painful, but talk to a lot of logistics industry people. But one of the things that has become very clear is that up until about the past 5 years, technology and logistics have not always been synonymous with each other. There's been a lot of manual entry, and with this kind of growth or this push towards getting things automated, getting things integrated, that's why I'm curious about you, because obviously you come from, I would assume, a tech background. When did you start having to deal with anything that involved supply chain?
Yeah, well, interesting. I actually started out as a mechanic, and and then I moved into parts. So I was motorcycle parts manager for a number of years, and operations manager in manufacturing before I really got into sort of the technology side of it. So it's really bringing what I would want as somebody in that role into the technical world, right? Being able to use the computer systems to be able to effectively package things, effectively get things out the door, all of those sorts of things. So yes, my background in the last 20 years or so, and which is weird because I'm only like 29 or something, but
and you look great for a 29-year-old. I'll tell you, you've got more hair than I do, and I'm 35. So,
Yeah. So, the last 20 years or so, InsightWorks has been around for just over 10 years, but, taking that knowledge, not just my own, a lot of the people here have that sort of SME background, and bringing it into the digital world, if you will, and automating some of those laborious manual processes.
And I love that, because I talk to a lot of tech people who are tech people for tech people's sake, but you have a little bit of the big picture coming from where you're at before. So you understand why the ones and zeros are supposed to line up they are for that end result. And that's sometimes more rare than it should be. But I'm leaving Bill out here for a second. So Bill, SPS Commerce, where do you come from? How did you get involved in this crazy thing? And what made you lucky enough to be on this podcast, viewed and listened to by 7.5 people?
So, it's the first podcast I'm on, so I feel honored. No, I appreciate it. So Bill, my name is Bill Gaustad. I lead our partnerships team here at SPS Commerce. For those who don't know, I know Mark's very familiar. SPS Commerce, we're a full service retail supply chain organization. Like, what is that actually? Like, what does that mean?
There are words in there, and I understood the words.
They mean something, kind of. So essentially the customers we work with are buying orgs. So think of retailers that the three of us could go out to Costco, Walgreens, you name it, suppliers that sell into those retailers, whether that being into their store, online, direct to consumer, and then logistics partners. So all of which that kind of some of the things that Mark mentioned earlier, and we work across that full. Typically, automating data, and for those in the simplest terms, typically what's called EDI. So it's been in the industry for about 30 years.
If you don't know what EDI and you're listening to this, you're probably not at the right podcast.
I would tend to agree with you on that. Or you were given something like, I need to do this now. Where do I start? So either way, everyone's at a different point within their journey. But my background, I mean, a little different from Mark, but I come from a technical background. So I've been in SPS for about 5 years. Okay. But I started in the industry more on the ERP side of the fence. So working with really as a VAR, or value-added reseller, reselling ERP, deploying ERP. And then I'm sure we'll talk about it here today, because Mark mentioned D365 Business Central is a lot of that is intertwined with logistics, EDI, shipping. So that's how I came to the fold and how I met Mark.
Is there anything ERPs aren't intertwined with, right? Is there anything they won't touch into? And how much fun is it working directly for an ERP? Because I would imagine it's never like a no, we don't do that. It's a give me a week and we'll find somebody that can figure that out,
Yeah, I would say when I first started, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing and why you hired me. I would say that was probably the first thing.
That was a hell of a sales pitch. Was that on the resume?
So I appreciate it, but because actually my first job out of college was with SPS, and that's how I got linked up with that particular ERP reseller. But no, you learn a lot. You learn a lot really fast, and you typically learn it via failure, if that resonates or makes sense.
It's the fastest. And I think I said this yesterday. It was jokingly in the office, but you got to have a little trauma or else the scar, you learn better from the scars than you do from the gold stars, right?
Totally. So I'm happy it's like 15 years now, fast forward. I'm a much happier and healthier individual, I think. But
perception's important. So as long as you believe it,
exactly. But no, I think like because you were exposed to so many different types of customers. I think that's number one. Like, take away what our software does or what we solve for. It's like, what are the business problems these customers are having to go through, and then what type of solution is needed to solve for that? Is it us? Is it a partner? Like at that point in time, like an InsightWorks, like an SPS. My developers in-house, like what is it to essentially solve the customer's business problem for scalability? So that was super interesting. Where I'm at now is because of those experiences.
I was just saying it's got to keep you busy, and you probably don't know how each day is going to go then. So there's no monotony to it, at least up in the first few years, I would imagine.
Totally. Yeah.
No. And then kind of going back to a point I'd say probably both of you made as we're talking about WMS, ERPs, kind of this D365 and all of that. There's been a push, like I said, logistics and technology haven't always really been a synonymous term. But lately, at least from the clients I speak to and work with, as well as some of the prospects, there's been a giant push towards integration across the board. And I'm wondering if that's you guys are living that because it's just inherently a core part of what you do. For me, Banyan exists both places, right? As a standalone and as a completely tied in thing. But are you seeing a big hop in automation and plugging in as many things as to one box as possible? Or is that just a perception I have maybe because of the post-COVID?
No, I think you're right. And I think COVID had a lot to do with it. Really cementing, I think, what consumers want. And when I say consumers, that's also the people that are running logistics departments. They're consumers, in their personal life.
Sure.
What they're used to is going in and saying, I want this, and having the ability to have that integration with the carriers and say, oh, it's going to cost me X amount to deliver this, and I hit a button and I get it, right? And so the people on the other side figuring out how they're going to provide that same level of standard in sort of, higher volume logistics or LTL or FTL, things like that. That's where the push is coming from, right? People know that it's possible to hit a button, get their delivery dates, get their rates, get the stuff delivered quickly and easily. Well, they're like, if I can do that in my personal life, why can't I do that in my business?
Yeah, it's not a sci-fi novel. You're doing it on a phone over to the side and then going into a POS from Windows 95 and it's telling you, sorry, I can't do that.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think that and COVID, because everybody, shifted to a large degree of online shopping, that helps cement the fact that, hey, this stuff is possible. Why can't I do this with my freight shipments, right? And so I think that expectation of being able to do everything electronically now is much more prevalent and is driving a lot of these discussions that we're having.
And with that, Bill, I would imagine that because you are retail centric, even at least maybe 1 to 2/3 of kind of the description you gave me, that's got to be a big deal because some of these players now have to play at an e-commerce pace that they weren't before. And then also probably diversifying their functionality as you talk about some of the warehousing. What does that look like in, either pre-COVID towards post-COVID or now from your perspective, kind of from a finger pulse check of what's going on there?
Yeah, we're fortunate enough because you hear the term omni-channel a lot, right? Going back to it can mean.
Does that mean one channel? Because I'm not smart. Okay,
yeah,
I haven't heard.
The way I describe it is: are you selling through multiple channels and through multiple customers?
Gotcha.
And because we have about 50,000 customers globally, all at different stages in their life cycle, all running different systems, all those different things. So, and I'll get to that on integration here in a second because that definitely impacted. But
sounds like a really fun topic by itself. Yeah,
yeah. Where I'll touch on kind of where the spike came out of and where companies, like what type of companies were most successful. Okay. Is, hey, they're able to say yes to, well, I was shipping to a distribution center. And individuals like us three were buying it in store. That wasn't happening for 12 or 18 months. So organizations who were smart and nimble, and maybe the last part, which is that we're able to say yes, were ones that, hey, I was shipping into a store, DC, but now I have my own website, through a Shopify or a BigCommerce, or I'm selling through an Amazon marketplace. And they're able to recognize I need to shift, but then 2, they're actually able to do that from a technology perspective. And that's where we were able to assist organizations. It's like, all right, I can check that box. I can get the information flowing into my source of truth. Again, ERP, WMS, TMS. And then with partners like SPS and InsightWorks, I'm able to get those out the door and fulfill those. And that wasn't like, all right, that happened in grocery specifically. That happened it was literally across the board. And then you saw the organizations that were literally able to say yes and take technology as a barrier. Technology wasn't a barrier for them to be able to accomplish that.
Gotcha. And then, so I know that there's an EDI centric aspect to SPS. Is that still a really prominent part of the integrations, or is it kind of, is there other channels within those integrations? Well, just because I know we use API here, there's some file drops and some exports and flat files and webhooks, but EDI is by definition, a very standardized language back and forth. Does that, ideally until somebody starts messing with the code and then it's very unstandardized. But is that still a great effective tool to get systems to talk to each other?
Yes. Okay. I'm not just saying that because I work for an EDI.
No. Which is first good answer, by the way.
Well, and maybe I'll say this. Because we as a provider of EDI, whether that be compliance or automation, we're not driving the need for it. We're just solving the need for it. Who's driving it are the retailers. So retailers like this, if you want to do business with us, you have to do EDI. Until that changes, whether there's better technology out there or whatever the case may be, that adoption won't happen. So we follow. So I'm saying that in terms of it's because you hear like kind of anecdotally, like EDI is going away. It's not. It's really not. Yeah,
people in logistics have been saying that for at least 30 years, and I'm still getting, hey, can you get me EDI hooked up to these guys? Like,
totally.
Well, the cold Gaustad too, and everything along those lines. It's much easier to say something is dead and get a news article on it and get people to click it than the real story, right?
Totally. And then that's not to say, and I'm not as technical as I used to be. There's maybe more automated technical solutions out there per se, but it's all about it. Again, it's all about adoption until that happens. Because we follow retailers. Wherever retailers go, that's our model, because that's suppliers need to follow, and same with logistic partners, because they're serving those suppliers selling into those retailers.
And I mean, that's a fair point too, is if that's what they're using, that's what you're giving them and making sure it works for them.
Totally. Yes. Yep.
Yeah. And EDI really, I mean, the standards may change, but the EDI being electronic data interchange, I mean, you're always going to have that electronic data interchange. Even though maybe the underlying transmission mechanisms and standards may change, you're still going to have to send data back and forth. That's never going away, ever.
Right. It's just how it's going to happen. No, I agree.
And to your point, we see articles, oh, barcodes are dead, barcodes are going away. And then the article is, well, they're going to use data matrix codes, which is basically a barcode. Like, so, it's not going away. That some of the technology and concepts may change, but, it's not going away.
And then one of the biggest things I like to question I have, and maybe it's just a change of how you're describing it. So we use WMS, or warehouse management system, and ERP. Oh God, electronic resource platform. Oh God, do I even know what an ERP stands for?
Resource planning. You're close, but yeah.
Okay, there it was. Yeah. What's the key difference there? Do you guys, is there a defining line, or like we talked about before, are there some blurred lines where if your ERP is doing a certain level of supply chain automation, it becomes a WMS, or are you bolting a WMS into an ERP? Where's that line defined, if at all?
Yeah, any and all of that, really. So some ERP solutions include WMS or portions of that capability in there. Others, you need to bolt it on. Some are, and that line shifts depending on which system you're working with. I mean, the one, we're focused on is the Microsoft Business Central platform, and that has some, good core, structure for WMS in there, but you really need to bolt something on like ours to make it effective. So it's a little bit of both, right? And so that's really what it is. ERP obviously holds all the master data for inventory and those sorts of things. And your WMS is actually how you execute on that information.
Okay.
In the warehouse, right?
I got you. So they're not really competing with each other. They're using each other's functions to really go get whatever the process needs to be done. Now within that, Bill, you talked about you started as a VAR. I know that InsightWorks uses VARs. What is that like for, I'm a salesperson for my organization directly, and there might be some partner conversations, InsightWorks being one of them and whatnot, but is there a different level of value that VARs bring to the table? And talk to me like, I've never had to interact with one from a consumer side, or going like, hey, I'm interested in ERP or WMS. I'm going to go talk to a few VARs and see what they bring to the table. But I'm very curious as to where the value is in that, and how that might be a little different than having, per se, your own direct sales force.
Mark, you want to answer that? You want me to take that? I think we felt like answer it different ways, but very similar.
I want both answers.
You answer it, and I'll answer it the opposite way, just to keep things.
fair
I like that.
Fair enough.
Little checks and balances here.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll answer this from kind of where I stand now, because SPS, we're it's funny. We use all these different acronyms in this world, WMS, ERP, VAR, ISV. So SPS we're a third party independent software. I'm saying this like intentionally, independent software vendor, meaning we add additional functionality on top of an ERP, WMS, or TMS that system does not do it within itself naturally, or foundationally. So you're like Shelby Motors compared to the Ford Mustang. Yes, there you go. Exactly. Yeah. So we're adding functionality on top of those systems that they don't necessarily have, and more importantly, they don't want to have. Okay. So that's the blessing and the curse of what we specifically solve for and what we do. But coming from a VAR, like, this is my team's role, and this is actually a huge emphasis for SPS as a business, because we have about 2,500 employees globally, most of which here in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis area. A lot of those are individuals going out and engaging our customers or potential customers. I don't like to say directly, but on behalf of other go-to-market strategies that SPS has.
Okay.
Like, for example, we'll partner with retailers. Retailers like, I don't want to engage these suppliers. SPS go and engage them.
Okay.
And as you can imagine, those retailers like, hey, this is the ERP or system they're using to run their business, and this is their VAR that they're working with. They don't have that data.
Go tell me how that's going to work, and then write it up for me.
So as you can imagine, we're calling into these customers, and we're also working, like a huge component of our business is working with those ecosystems. So not only the VARs, and I should say technology ecosystems, is probably a better way of saying that. Not only the value-added resellers, but also the publishers directly. So in Mark's case, we work with them a ton in the Microsoft D365 space, where we have alignment with Microsoft directly, but also the value-added reseller. And our goal is to make sure, are we solving, one, do you understand what we do, number one, and how we solve for it, and what type of customers we work with, because there's a lot of things that overlap, right? When they're implementing a new ERP, which those value-added resellers do. Like, they're working with these organizations that typically at a much larger capacity outside of what we just solve for, because they're the trusted advisor from a technology perspective, ideally, with those types of customers. So we're engaging not only our customer community, but we spend a lot of time engaging our VAR partners on what we do, what the benefits are of partnering with SPS, and at the simplest level, like, when to engage us.
Yeah, a lot of kind of education within that too, and that makes sense. Or updating them on, hey, here's the newest. Okay, I gotta give that's a good 8 points on the answer. What's Mark got on the opposite?
Actually, I can't answer the opposite because I largely agree. So yeah, the VAR, the value-added reseller, really, they're typically, we refer to them as the partners, right? So the customer is a partner, which is their VAR, and that VAR, ideally their role is to understand the customer's business and how the software is going to help them with that business, like the ERP software as an example. And as part of that, the ERP doesn't do everything, right? As Bill said. So they're going to have to reach out to other organizations like InsightWorks or SPS Commerce to figure out where we're going to fill some of these gaps that are needs in the customer's environment. And so we're not going to be able to do that ourselves. We do 300 and some projects a year on our own, plus the ones our resellers do. We just don't have the time to go in there and figure out, okay, learn the customer's business and figure out what's going to fit. The VARs are on there, ideally engaged with that customer. They understand the problems, they understand their business, and they're going to be able to appropriately select the tools that are going to help fill those gaps. So that's the value from the customer's perspective of the VAR. From us, your question, I think, was a little bit, why would we sell direct versus through a VAR? Specifically for that, right? We can do sort of broad-based selling and hire a bunch of salespeople. We don't actually have any salespeople. It's me, which is a pretty sad testament to things. But anyway.
Don't be so down on yourself, Mark.
I don't actually sell. Our sales process is, that's what it looks like. If you like it, call me. Otherwise, you'll never hear from me again. But
I love that. That's always my favorite.
But yeah, so those VARs are our sales team effectively, and they're going to come to us if they find a problem at a customer's site that our solutions will address, right? And then what we do is then we reach out to Banyan and SPS Commerce to go in and say, okay, well, we're going to address this core set of functionality. And there are things, like Bill said, that we just don't want to do. I don't want to do EDI. That's dumb. I don't want to go connect to all these carriers. It's dumb too. You guys do the dumb stuff.
I love that. That's gonna be the title of this podcast. Making other people do dumb stuff. No, it's very professional. So it sounds like VARs get to be more of almost a consultant with a kind of a bigger, solution finders with a bigger tool set than they might have if they only sold one product or worked with one organization. One of the, as you guys were going through, great answers on both sides. I'm not a judge here. I'm learning as much as I am. Also trying to make the conversation go in a way where I can seem smart. Like, you talked about this, not wanting to do things and not do dumb stuff. It's interesting to me. So you got to go talk to Microsoft about certain things. Is that as for certain the platforms that you're working on? Is that a, hey, we're going to go do this? Is that possible? Or they go, yeah, it's possible. We just didn't feel like supporting it. What does that look like? What do those conversations look like as you're talking with that? I don't know if even parent company or platform owner would look like.
Yeah, well, from our perspective, I mean, what we're doing is responding to the market demand. So we really don't go to Microsoft and say, hey, we're going to do this. It's more like Microsoft saying, hey, I noticed you did this. We're going to do it now and you're screwed. But that, luckily for us, that doesn't happen much. But they can actually, decide, oh, I like what you did there. I'm going to do that. And then you're kind of screwed. But, we have pretty, mature and significant functionality that I think we're safe there. So really, it's more Microsoft looking at what we're doing and what aspects of the market we're addressing, and should they pull some of that functionality within the ERP, so that, because their goal is to sell the ERP solution.
Right.
They want as many check boxes in that list as possible. Oh yeah, we can do shipping. Oh yeah, we can do EDI, which honestly they have. If you go and ask Microsoft, hey, can Business Central do LTL, can it do EDI? They'll say it sure can, and really
it sure can. Here's the people that go talk to and make it work.
That's what it ends up being. Yeah. But
here's Mark, here's Bill, here's Banyan. They'll make it all do those things. But yes, it can. Don't ask us about the technicals. That's somebody else's job.
Exactly. So our and SPS will be probably a little different than us, but from our perspective, we're just kind of doing our own thing. We're addressing the needs of the market. And if Microsoft wants to copy us, that's their prerogative, but we don't worry about it too much. But we don't really talk to Microsoft and say, hey, we want to do this, and away we go. Now, on the AI side, which is not really part of this conversation, but on the AI side, we're doing more of that.
I would say, where is AI not part of the conversation right now, right?
Yeah. So, and we do have some stuff on the shipping side for AI that's out there already. But anyway, we'll leave that for later.
That's right. Gotta leave them wanting for more. We got to have a follow-up episode, right? Bill, do you have something on my flawed question of talking to Microsoft that Mark said he doesn't do the way I thought?
I think maybe Mark mentioned it. Like we're fortunate. It's a blessing and a curse. Like what we do, some publishers have tried, like a Microsoft, maybe not specifically, but like examples of, and for what we do, it's so niche that they realize it's not just about like you mentioned, integration earlier around automation.
Yeah.
It's not just the integration into that system. There's a whole other aspect of it outside of the system around compliancy with retailers, suppliers, and logistics partners. So you can't marry those two if you're so focused on the system and or focused on the network, if you will. You got to really marry that. That's where we're fairly unique in the sense where we have that network expertise. That's where our business was built on. A retailer came to us saying, hey, we don't want to engage our suppliers and onboard them via EDI. Like, we don't want to do that. We want to hire you. So that's actually like that. So we just came in, we didn't really have any sort of integration per se. It's like, we'll build your specs and we'll go engage your suppliers and we'll give them a tool to be compliant. And then that was 25 years ago. And now today we can offer integrations into leading ERPs that we own and operate and the network. So it's evolved, but to Mark's point, like we align with the publisher more so around like compatibility. Cause as you probably know, they go through enhancements and upgrades very frequently throughout the year. And we want to make sure we're very much ahead of that. Yeah. So as that does happen, our customers' processes don't break.
Warned before, so you put it in your dev cycle. And by the way, we changed something today. Good luck. Yeah.
Yes, totally. Or what else are you doing in the next 3 to 5 years that we need to be aware of that can make the customer experience much more positive? Again, like that way we're not playing it. We have a very specific partnership strategy around. Do we feel strong about the publisher engagement and alignment? And do we feel really strongly about the ecosystem alignment? And what I mean, like, again, going back to the value, the partners that Mark mentioned, consulting firms, what have you, those two can be separate. And in a lot of cases are, but we try to marry those two to make sure overarching by market, we position ourselves well and have a strong product for our customers.
Now, I could honestly probably talk to you guys for about another hour because so much of what you do is stuff I don't touch every day, as well as I haven't talked, you aren't another 3PL, or you're not another giving me industry on parcel that I've had 2 or 3 times, and nothing against it. I love talking parcel, but I love not knowing what someone's going to say even more, because I'm only as smart as my last conversation with someone that knows more than me. But with that, and I think Mark had a great point, Microsoft could say, hey, we like what you did there. We want to take it, which leads me to a great opportunity. What's something that both on the InsightWorks and the SPS Commerce that you guys are doing now and are really proud of, or is right around the corner that you'd either like to promote, or just say, hey, this is something that's hot and new, and I want to know about it, and an opportunity to talk to, like I said, 7.5, I think maybe 8 people now. They gave me, there's a whole half more person that's going to be listening this week.
Yeah,
who wants to go first? Yeah.
Sure. We mentioned the AI. I think that's really the kind of cool, new, interesting stuff. We've got a lot, because we've got a pretty broad product range across manufacturing, shipping, those sorts of things.
And what would the AI be used for in that? Just in the decision logic? Is it in some of helping you guys code or plug in some of the integrations, or is it everywhere you can fit it?
Pretty much, yeah. So there's a few different ways we use it. One is sort of the internal efficiencies, where it helps us code and things like that. But from a productivity perspective for the end customer, some of the things are things like carrier invoice reconciliations and things like that, right? Because ours is a multi-shipper system where they might use 20 different carriers, and we hold all the quotes and everything, and we can get the invoices through the ERP, and we can reconcile those. So things like that using AI, it makes it actually effective. When you're receiving goods, we've been talking about shipping a lot, but the flip side of that is receiving. Similar types of things. As we're receiving, we can use AI to streamline that receiving process and handle serial numbers and lot numbers and things like that more effectively than sort of the old manual approach. So lots of goodies on the AI side coming on.
I'd be surprised if you didn't, and I like hearing a lot of those, especially with I'm a person who just started using an AI note taker for some of my meetings, because it's hard to engage while at the same time actively taking notes, and I know that's made my life easier. I can only imagine what some of the back end softwares and platforms can able to do with it, and I'm excited to see that. Bill, not to steal any of your thunder, if you're not using AI, that's okay. I'm not using any AI other than just the note taking. But what about SPS? What do you guys have that you're really proud of right now, or that's coming out down the road that you want to talk about?
Well, maybe I'll probably speak on behalf of Mark, who attends a lot of the same events that I do. If you're going to some sort of industry event, ERP, you're going to hear about AI. It's front of mind.
We've probably already heard about it for a year. You'll probably hear about it for another 2 years.
I don't know. I'm a simple man, and by simple, maybe it's stupid, but like, what does that actually look like in theory? Because you can talk about these grandiose ideas. I mean, maybe how we're looking at that at SPS is, how do we streamline the customer experience? Meaning, there's a lot of things behind the scenes. Like, again, going back to EDI is painful. It really
so it's more of that, doing more with one page in front of you.
Doing more and automating what can take someone weeks or months down to hours or days, as an example. That to us is one thing that we are heavily focused on. How do we? Because maybe to kind of look at it at a macro level, SPS, we're a public org, so all this is public. Yeah. We have
tell us your secrets.
Yeah, right. We have ambitions to be $1 billion company by 2026. And so that's going to take organic growth through existing customers, which, if they're happier, they typically acquire more money, consume more, and see more value out of it. And then, because this will answer your question around excitement, is what are other adjacent markets that we could either acquire and or partner with? I mean, that's one of the reasons why we partner with Mark and his team, because we solve something for the same customer, solve a similar business problem, but different. We don't want to be in each other's lanes. So we're highly, highly complementary of each other, which is like, those are the best partnerships. They really are.
That's exactly, I'm never going to build a WMS. Yeah. He doesn't want to go out to all the LTL carriers and get their API. And it's just, it's easier to work together, to grow together.
Totally. So it's like, how do you streamline that? How, like, I won't share it on this podcast, but we're doing some things even within our partnership to streamline the customer and partner experience. Like, and that's in motion now. So it's like things that it's the old way. And we even have new leadership within SPS. So like all this is happening now. All right, how are we taking it to the next level to make sure, hey, the customer, because if the customers aren't happy, you're going to see it. You're going to feel it.
You're going to hear about it. They're going to churn.
How can you continue that and continue that scale? So that to me is, again, that's can be a fairly generic answer, but that's what I'm most excited about, because one, for me personally, it's going to stretch me quite a bit. But two, if we don't do it, it will probably have some pretty negative implications on our ambitions and the business in general. So
good reasons. And that makes a lot of sense to me. Like I said, I'm more on the sales side. So all of that growth and figuring out where to grow naturally, scalably, and while using the partners and the tools at your disposal that already work, while at keeping the customer happy. Always the best one, because it's great to make sales. It's even better when people aren't yelling at you after you make the sales. So
and it's not about that one, it's about the 9 or 10 following.
Right. It's the referral.
You're typically doing something right in that.
Exactly. All right. So we're coming to an end here. You guys won't have to listen to it anymore. I know you guys are busy doing actual stuff instead of just pretending to be a podcast host. But so with that, I always like to leave kind of with the outro. With this platform, if you had one message, whether that's from you personally, InsightWorks or SPS, or even from the industry you're at or looking into, what's something as a kind of a final shout out, either what we talked on here or what you're seeing out into the audience, or just to have for archived recording one day to look back on?
Well, I'm going to say this because hopefully there's partners listening.
That's always the hope.
We love our partners. We do. Like, we're heavily partners. Without them, we would not be successful, even with other go-to-market strategies that SPS has. It's critical for what we do. And going back to the ambitions, it's critical for us to scale. If we're not doing it through partners, it's not going to happen. So I'd say that maybe to those out, going back to the beginning of this conversation of organizations that either are here that like, I'm doing it today and it's really painful, or like my sales team just got us a contract with Target as an example. I have to do EDI. What does that mean? I would say that you need to figure out the way, like what makes best sense for your business to handle it. Because there are a couple ways. I would say SPS's model is, and just very directly, is we look at ourselves as a full service provider, meaning instead of a 3PL supplier or retailer saying, hey, I'm going to hire 10 people, I'm going to buy the technology and go run my own EDI initiative. That typically fails unless you, have been through it before, or you like, it's all about the people behind it.
It doesn't seem feasible for most people or most organizations.
In most cases, not. Yeah, especially in the mid-market and really the 3PL space too. So what I would say is where SPS comes into play is we handle that on behalf of our customers and partners. So like our whole value prop is we'll handle the tech and the resourcing behind it so you don't have to. So if you came to me saying, no, I want to own it, we're typically we're actually not a good fit. Going back to Mark's question around like sales, like we're not a good fit.
There you go.
So I would just say like, just really think about how you want to manage it. Just like other aspects of your tech stack. Is this something you want to own, or is this something that you would prefer to outsource? So a little bit of a plug, but I think it's important to talk about.
There's part of that is exactly for you to be able to plug. That's part of why this podcast exists. So go ahead, Mark, you're up.
Yeah, well, that's a tough one to follow, but on similar, thoughts on sort of the partner relationships, but also for anybody, the 7.5 people out there listening, as you said, probably more than that, but if you're looking for a technology platform or want to move to one, looking at Business Central is a good place to start. So it's a plug for Microsoft there, but mostly because that's what we run on, and that's what jointly we will all run on if a customer goes to Business Central. So if you're looking for something, Business Central is the way to go. And then of course InsightWorks, where all of our solutions will plug in there and then hook up to SPS and Banyan and just make the world a better place.
Well, guys, thank you so much. And kind of as a last wrap up here, you heard it from Mark and Bill from InsightWorks, from SPS Commerce, and from Banyan Technology. You don't have to do it alone, especially when it comes to technology, integration, automation. Make sure you're doing it with a partner. If you don't have the resource to do it yourself, make sure it's a good fit, and make sure that, what you're doing is big picture, ideal workflow, what you want it to do with as little manual work as you can, because at a certain point, we all have turnover that we're going through. We all have changing initiatives where we're all trying to do a lot more with the tools that we have, or even less tools. And it just makes sense to lean into some of those partners or some of those organizations that have already been doing something really well in their specialization or niche, and tying that into what you're doing. And I know that's where InsightWorks and Banyan, and I know that SPS and InsightWorks have really kind of made a really organic and beneficial partnership and relationship. So thank you guys both very much. I appreciate the time from Mark and Bill and InsightWorks and SPS Commerce. And everybody watching, stay tuned for some more podcasts. Appreciate the time. Hope you learned something. Hope you had some fun. And this is Patrick Scolas for Banyan Technologies Tire Tracks. We'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.